Now I'd like to talk about the differences between social science and other disciplines. One of the most important distinctions is between social science and the humanities. Superficially, they may seem similar, and to many outsiders, the distinctions may not actually be clear. The key distinction between them is in the importance of generalization in the social sciences. Basically, social scientists seek to learn something broad or general from the study of a specific context or case. By contrast, humanists, when they study a specific case, that's all they're interested in, and they want to understand the specific circumstances that produce that case, the understanding that people have of that. To give an example, consider revolutions. Revolutions are a big subject of study both in history, in the humanities, and in social science. So the difference in the way that social scientists and humanists study revolutions is again in the effort to generalize. A social scientist studying a revolution, maybe the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, the Russian Revolution, or maybe several revolutions, is trying to understand some basic common features, some basic processes that underlie this kind of dramatic social change, this dramatic political change that allows for some generalization to understand why it is that societies in general may experience rapid, sometimes unexpected social change. By contrast, a historian studying a revolution, again maybe the French Revolution, is mainly interested in telling the story of that specific revolution. What were the patterns of factors that intertwined to produce that historical event? What personalities were involved? So the historian who's studying a specific revolution may not be particularly interested in making a statement about revolutions overall or rapid social change. So again, this is the key distinction between social science and the humanities. The emphasis on generalization and generalizable knowledge in social science, and the interest and the focus on the specific in the humanities. Another related distinction is the one between social science and journalism. Journalism, like the humanities, is typically interested in telling the story of a specific event or a specific context or setting. Journalism about an event doesn't typically seek a broader understanding of similar events. It's really focused on reporting on a particular event. Again, it might be an uprising, it could be a major political event or the outcome of an election. In this sense, journalism is a bit like history. Again, the emphasis is on telling the story of the specific and the context, not in trying to draw some broader conclusion. As we have talked about before, simply telling a story about a specific situation, a specific context, is not social science. It may be very good journalism, and there's nothing wrong with telling a story, but it's not social science. Finally, there's also the distinction between social science and philosophy in terms of differences between social science and apparently related fields. What distinguishes social science from philosophy is the emphasis on empirical research. Philosophy is largely, perhaps entirely, deductive. It emphasizes reasoning from first principles, basic assumptions about norms, values, what is right, what is wrong, what are people's motivations. And it includes a, again, normative or moral component. Social science, in contrast with philosophy, seeks to understand the world as it is, not necessarily as it should be. I'd like to talk in more general terms about a very important distinction. That's the one between the social sciences and the natural sciences. No one, of course, would confuse the two. They're very distinct. But I would like to identify what I think is the key distinction between them. The fundamental distinction of the social sciences from the natural sciences is that the object of study in the social sciences, the person, the social entity, is not inanimate in the way that the objects of study in the natural sciences, molecules, stars, are inanimate. That's a very important difference. So when we talk about the objects of study in social science, people, firms, families, countries, they act, they anticipate the future, they make choices. They're not passive, they are, again, active. They are shaped by their past. By contrast, when we think about the objects that are studied in the natural sciences, stars, molecules, galaxies, rocks, they are essentially passive. They obey the same rules everywhere and at all times. You can study one star and learn something about all stars of the same category everywhere in the universe and possibly at all times. So the methods used in the social sciences actually have to reflect this fundamental fact that the things we study, people, families, religions, societies, are so active and make choices and have histories and they think about the future. This actually introduces a lot of complications when it comes to conducting social science research. And social science research requires a whole set of methods very distinct from the ones used in the natural sciences to try to figure out why a relationship may or may not be cause and effect. It's a much more difficult task than what we see in the natural sciences, where again, the things that are studied are inanimate. Once you studied one of them, you studied all of them. So social science faces a really dramatic challenge in terms of the complexity of the processes that it seeks to understand. And hopefully, over the course of the lectures that remain, you'll come to understand these methods and why social science is so special and so distinct.